So, good evening, welcome everybody to ERL Tier 1. I'm obviously back with Tier 1 commentary tonight, and tonight is obviously the final race of the season then, and we have reached the championship finale here in China, and we've got, of course, quite the epic championship finale going on, with potentially 3 drivers who can win it tonight, the overall prize, with obviously Stuart, Appledorn and Arbegduri then in the hunt for then first place and for the championship overall. So I'll go through the standings. So Stuart's got currently 223 points, has got a 4-point lead over Appledorn on 219, and then we've got Arbegduri on 210. Those are your championship standings for the top 3 in the drivers. Also in the constructors, overall there is a bit of a battle there too, with Alfa Romeo on 312 and Mercedes on 307. Also, I believe Aston Martin and Red Bull can win the championship both on 287 and 281. But our main focus tonight is, of course, on that then Drivers' Championship then, which ultimately has potentially, well, could go one of 3 ways, of course. And ultimately, while Stuart is the driver going into this race as your championship leader, however, is he the favourite to win it? Maybe not. However, before I go through, obviously, a poll I put out a little bit earlier on today, I'm going to have to probably scroll quite far back up. So, in terms of how people think things will go, so we've had 7 votes in favour of Stuart in terms of, you know, how they think the championship is going to go. They think Stuart will win. Then we've got 7 people also backing, obviously, Appledorn, and we've got 3 people backing then as well Arbegduri. So that is how people think things are going to play out for this final race of the season. So let's go on then a lap then with Lucky Egg, who's going to be the first one to do a lap around here at the circuit of Shanghai, around this Chinese layout, of course, built by Herman Tilke himself, of course, one of the great Formula 1 designers of the modern 21st century, built tracks like, built tracks like Kuala Lumpur, Turkey, of course, as well. Also Las Vegas, I suppose. Probably not a great track, but, you know, nonetheless, did build it. Baku, he had involvement with as well, but nonetheless, this is one of certainly his more finer works. As he'll, well, Lucky Egg, tackling then the middle sector here. Now, very key corner this turn 13 to get absolutely right, because if you get this right, this sets you up for the main back straight then here, which obviously is a very, very long back straight, and you are full throttle with DRS open for then Lucky Egg down into the braking zone, picks his braking point, turns the car in, gets the car then out of the corner, full then throttle towards the next corner, and then it's a quick flick, quick lift off of the throttle, and then back on the power, and across the line for Lucky Egg, it's a 133.9 then there for himself. So that is the first lap time of the day. We're going to ignore those who are on inters for now, because I doubt they'll be doing purple sectors and doing really times close to that. That's obviously for them just doing times. That might be just a little bit competitive. So Kev King's gone P2 then. I think actually Lange is the next driver on the lap. So Lange then up the hill towards the back straight. Obviously got a car to his right. Stays out of the way pretty nicely overall for himself. So that won't affect him. Now we do have Q1, Q2 and Q3. So we do have a different format to qualifying tonight. A full qualifying and a 50% race, of course. Those new to Formula 1, in case you don't know how qualifying works in real life, at least, obviously this is the format that they use, Q1, Q2. Q1's about 18-19 minutes long, Q2's about 14 to 15 minutes, and then obviously Q3 is about 11 to 10 minutes, if I'm correct, in terms of the timing. So that's how long each session will last in terms of qualifying. So it should take us approximately maybe about 40 to 50 minutes to get qualifying done tonight, which therefore we'll see drivers have more laps, more opportunities. But the only thing is, you don't really want to advance using more than one set of tyres through the first part of qualifying if you can avoid using a second set of tyres. And of course, the bottom 5 at the end of each segment of qualifying is eliminated. So that is literally how qualifying works. So in terms of cut-off, I think we're probably looking around a maybe 1:33.5. I think you could probably get away with in this part of qualifying. So certainly Lucky Egg maybe got a bit of work to do. Let's see what Mafasa's doing, as he's the next one on a lap and he's invalidated. So that is pretty short-lived. So who's next going to be doing a lap? I think it might be Brian. He's about to come onto a lap. It is going to be Brian. So Brian's about to start then his qualifying lap then here around the Shanghai circuit. And he's got a bit of traffic, to be fair, ahead of him, of the McLaren, I think, of Iron Kid, who's on a set of inters, but Iron Kid does get out of the way very nicely there, as we can see, at turn 1. So that won't be a problem for, obviously, Brian, as they'll head then, well, he'll head towards then turn 4. Turn 4's pretty heavy braking zone, of course. This is where Daniel Ricciardo made that race-winning pass on Valtteri Bottas. And, of course, that was back in 2018. I think it was, yeah, 2018. That race, very actually entertaining Chinese Grand Prix, probably the best Chinese Grand Prix, of course, of one of the best Chinese Grand Prix of certainly the last decade that we had in Formula 1. I mean, I don't think we've had too many iconic Chinese Grand Prix. Maybe 2010 could be considered iconic. 2009 or 2009 was a pretty good one, I think, personally. But I can't remember too many iconic Grand Prix. Of course, this is where Nico Rosberg took his first race win in 2012. And talking about, actually, Nico Rosberg, of course, what Mercedes had, or talking of Mercedes, down that straight, they had a DRS, extra like DRS on the front wing, I think it was, or in the cockpit, which the driver could activate, and effectively made the car a lot quicker in a straight line, which helped them out down these straights, which you do need to have good straight line pace around here, and it's a 33.5 from then Brian to start his qualifying then day off. So yeah, of course that extra trick, as I was saying, Mercedes had, did help them out a lot. So back then to Mafasa. Then here he's now on a lap as he heads then through the middle sector and then gets the car out of that tight twisty chicane. Bit of a clumsy couple of corners then too are. Same with the other two before, I think turns 10 and 11. Pretty clumsy them ones are, or 9 and 10. Anyway, up the back straight, DRS wide open and activated, picks his braking zone just before the curb, and then gets a nice car slowed down and gets goodly on the power. Then through the final corner, just flicks it in, and that's a very nice line from then Mafasa, and it is, yep, very much up there with a 32.6, so just a few tenths away from first place of that. Probably should be safe enough to get him through. So I think Kev King and Mafasa should be safe come this qualifying. I think them two can probably head back to the pits and probably sit there for the remainder of the session, ultimately. In terms of drivers who probably aren't safe, probably looking at Briggsy, Lucky Egg, Brian maybe on a bit of a cliff there. I think Ralphie goes further. Now let's see what one of our championship protagonists can do. Then has decided to go for a set of mediums. Obviously, is that him giving away his race strategy? Does that mean he'll start on the obviously softs or hard potentially if he's already committed to the mediums? Same with Breezy. He's going to be getting a decent tow down the back straight, but gets out of the way nicely. Not sure who that was, whether that was Shade or Stewart, but it was one of the Alfa Romeos giving, well, the Red Bull driver a bit of a tow. Anyway, through then the final corner for Appledorn, and obviously he's going to come across the line now, and it's a 32.9 then for Appledorn. Should be safe with that, I think, but that could be also on the cuff of not being safe. And FCS and Shade has begun his lap. He was the Alfa Romeo driver who was given the tow to Appledorn. So next up is, well, I think it's then Dan. We'll follow Dan through. So, then that turn 13. Up then the back straight up the hill. And past what is, I would like to refer to as the Vettel stand, because on the left you usually get a lot of passionate Vettel fans. Certainly back in the day there was around that corner. Not sure there'll be as many there in 2024, but we'll have to wait and see. Of course, used to have them great big banners, and it's a 32.4 from Dan, so that's a very competitive lap on them mediums to start his day off. Now next up is FCS and Shade, or Shade, then into the braking zone, and obviously what can he do on a set of the softs as he'll come through the final corner now. And is this going to be good enough to get into the next part of qualifying? For now it is 33.3, so very decent lap time I suppose from him. But how about Stewart? 52.3 for middle sector from him too, so have to see, can he have a good end to this lap? Can he get safely into the next part of qualifying? As I say, reckon the 33s is probably where the cutoff is at, and he is into the top 6, so I think those roughly from maybe about Top Car Vlogger upwards are safe. I don't think they have to go again. Everyone else might be in a bit of a more danger territory, like sort of maybe Tom, Shade, Morgan, Brian, Briggsy, Lucky Egg. Certainly, obviously, Lange and Iron Kid are not in good territory there. So, let's have a look. Is Iron Kid on a lap? He is now on a lap, and he's obviously on a set of the softs. So, was on inters before, saving obviously himself maybe a set of tyres or whatever he was doing, getting down that banker. Sometimes drivers do like to do that, especially seen more commonly in the esports world, where of course drivers do you know, do that sort of thing. They go out on the inters, but of course them drivers, you know, usually actually able to be as quick as on inters as they are sometimes on a fresh set of softs, which is pretty ironic and insane, because in real life that would never happen. You know, a driver be as quick on inters as they would be on slicks. You'd find yourself, well, like Line Kid has, several seconds below where the pole time is, or, well, not pole time, sorry, where the P1 time is at the moment. I'm not going to call it pole just yet, because there is still a very, very long way to go in qualifying. Anyway, here comes Iron Kid into the final sector then, and final part of the lap, so get his car nicely rotated out of the hairpin, and now focuses on one final corner, and around that final corner, and now focuses on getting his car across the line, and it's a 32.9. Sorry about that, just pressed the wrong button. So next up is then, I think, Robbo and Arbejduri. I think it's actually Arbejduri. He hasn't set a lap yet. Of course, is one of the championship protagonists right now in this fight here tonight. If obviously, well, I'm not going to go through the potential outcomes actually just yet. I sort of know them anyway. Like, realistically, if Stuart finishes ahead of everyone, then of course Stuart is the champion. Arbejduri really would need to finish at least top 3, top 4, sort of to have a chance tonight, if he wants to be crowned champion. At minimum, realistically, I'll just give you basically an idea actually of the points. I say I weren't going to talk about it, but actually forget it. I will talk about it because you need to know. So, if let's say Arbejduri wins, then obviously Stuart finishes P5. Of course, Arbejduri would need, I believe, at least that extra point. In fact, he'd probably need Stuart to finish 6th. If Arbejduri finishes 2nd, then obviously Stuart needs to finish about 8th. Then if Arbejduri finishes 3rd, then obviously he would need Stuart to finish down in 11th, and so forth. You get the idea. That's basically Arbejduri. Arbejduri needs basically a bit of a bad race for Stuart, you know, for him to have a championship prospect here, really in truth. With, of course, Stuart and Appledorn, yeah, it's pretty bit more simpler for them. It's whichever really one outscores the other. There is maybe a few situations where things could get a bit complex. Like, for instance, if, let's say, you know, if, let's say, they're not fighting for the win, then things might get a bit more complex where, you know, they might need the other to finish about 2 positions ahead of the other. Well, in Appledorn's case, he would need to finish 2 positions ahead of basically, you know, Stuart effectively to win the championship. If they're not fighting for the race win tonight, I don't know. But looking at their pace, obviously, right now, you'd have to say Arbejduri is the pace setter at the moment. And right now, Briggsy's about 6/10ths up. Then through the middle sector, coming through the final corner. Can he keep this lap together? If he does, that'll certainly lift him up the order, and lifts him up well up the order into P4. So that sees him certainly through to the next part of qualifying. So let's see who else then is on a good lap. And we've got Brian on a good lap, 3/10ths up. I did say roughly the 133s, 35s would be roughly the cutoff. And it looks like maybe it's a little bit higher than that. But yeah, certainly I think Iron could be safe. So it looks like roughly maybe drivers that could be in a little bit of spot of bother. Could be Elliot for sure. Could be also Tom, depending on how much some of the lads at the bottom of the field improve. Already out of qualifying, we've got Lucky Egg and Lange. Both of them will not make the next part of qualifying. But here comes Brian then across the line. And Brian's about to cross the line now. Does he get out of qualifying? The answer to that is unfortunately no. Doesn't look like Robbo's improving, so it's just going to be Morgan. So if Morgan can get through, then yeah, where is also Elliot? Elliot's coming into the pits, so that could see him in the spot of bother too. So if Morgan can improve and Tom can improve, then this could see Elliot put out of qualifying here in Q1. And here goes Morgan. He's made a nice jump. So go back to Tom. He is also improving himself too. So here goes Tom across the line, goes up to 8th, and that is Elliot out. Then in qualifying, Robbo, I don't think he's improving his lap. Nope, he's retired on the track there. So there we go then. Out of Q1, we have Elliot, Robbo, Brian, Lucky Egg, and Lange all being knocked out in the first phase of this qualifying. And of course, some cars on very much the edge there, but obviously still got another 2 then rounds of qualifying to go. And given there's 2 more rounds of qualifying to go, still anything can happen. And I don't think we've seen, certainly not the best from Stewart and Appledorm as of yet, but we'll have to wait and see then what is going to happen. So, as I say, out of qualifying, I'll go through the bottom 5. So, we've got Lange, who will start P20, then Lucky Egg in P19, and then Brian P18. And Robbo will take 17th on the grid, with Elliot in then 16th in the grid. So, that is your bottom 5 for today's grid. Obviously, well, the other drivers, the other 15 of them, have safely made it through within 9/10 then overall of Arbejduri's best lap time of 32.0. And obviously, let's see what the second part of qualifying will hold for us. So, Q2, 15 minutes then for our drivers to come. Of course, now this is, well, it used to be actually, this used to be the part of qualifying that used to probably be the most detrimental to your race, because ultimately, whatever tyres you qualified back on in the day, that you had, of course, for Q2, you had to start your race on that set of tyres if you made it into the next part of qualifying. I don't believe that is the case anymore. I believe that rule was scrapped. I can't remember when it was. It must have been like 2020, I'm going to say, or 2021. That rule got scrapped where they decided to do away with it. But actually, I quite liked that rule because it meant an element of jeopardy if you got into the top part of the, the top 10. So it did leave an element of jeopardy there. And, okay, it probably... Well, it also meant as well, I think, come race day, we probably had better fights between, the top 15 and the top, 8 or 9, because it sort of also opened the door for them to, start on a bit of a fresher tyre and therefore have different sets of tyres and, just more available for them as well. So I thought it was a good rule. Just a shame they got rid of it, really. But they did get rid of it, and that is life for you in the end. I suppose, but I quite enjoyed that rule. Back in the day, what they had back in the 2015 era. Anyway, so here comes then Top Car Flogger. He's going to be the first driver in Q2 to start things off. Of course, still got lots of time remaining in terms of, getting the lap in. And, of course, if Ningo again easily can do so. So here he goes then. Top Car Vlogger starts then this qualifying session, or second part qualifying off, I should say. Up then through turn 1, then here. And using, of course, the track limits very nicely. Doesn't get out of shape or anything, so it looks very clean and controlled from, obviously, the Williams driver. Heading down towards turn 4. Hits the apex fairly nicely there. Gets a good exit. Of course, doing the fastest first sector, because he's the only one to do a first sector so far this qualifying in Q2. Through then turns 7 and 8. Pretty much flat out. Very much about, trying to control the car and, not overstep the limit. Through then 9 and 10. And again, them two corners a bit clumsy because they're a bit, short. They're a bit like the, well, I suppose similar to what you have at Monza, but maybe a little bit worse in that aspect. Then into a 12, at 13, a very crucial corner, as I said, to get that corner right, and sets you up for this big back straight, which is monsters in Formula 1 when it comes to probably straights. Of course, then hits the braking zone, hits on the brakes, and then one final corner to go, and invalidates. Thank you, Top Car Vlogger, for that lap. At least you demonstrated how to do a lap, I suppose. But, yeah, invalidated his effort. So, Stewart's then the first man to get a time on the board. But that is not very competitive sorry to say. 33.2. Yeah, that's really probably not, great lap when it comes to it. And yeah, he's might have to burn through additional set of tyres then here in Q2, which I don't know whether, he will try and take the gambit to go out again on that same set of tyres. But yeah, 32.7 for Neil. That is obviously a bit more like it. And we're seeing Appledorn going, maybe what on was a set of mediums and is a set of mediums, going for it again maybe on that set of tyres. But yeah, the only thing I'm thinking, unless them tyres are from Q1, maybe that's what he's done, just setting a banker on them scrubbed tyres, because even though they say 1 lap old, they might be actually 2 laps old or 3 laps old, because yeah, as I say, might be just reading that a bit incorrectly in the fact they could be from Q1, and you know what, that would make a bit more sense if they are. Anyway, Charlie Harris through then that Mickey Mouse section of the circuit, and out of turn 13, keeps the car nicely poised, and up then the back straight towards the DRS zone, opens up the DRS, does have a car ahead of him, but won't be affecting his, obviously, lap time, bit distant off in the, well, foreground, I suppose, if that's a word, because if background is looking back, so foreground would be looking forward, wouldn't it? So anyway, through the final corner, and, that's if even that's a word, foreground, I'm not even sure it is. In fact, I'm going to have a quick look, is that a word? So, yeah, Kev King overall is then coming through. Then the next wave, the next one will follow on a lap. So, Kev King up then towards the hairpin and gets car nicely slowed down then at the hairpin. Commits then to the final corner and is going to cross the line now. And what time will this be from the AlphaTauri driver? It's a 33.1. So, just letting you know, foreground is a word. Even though I don't really use it much. I don't think I ever heard. I don't think anyone probably uses that word that often. Foreground. That's probably a new one. Anyway, Morgan. Then, through then that turn 6 and 7. Into then turns 9. 10's obviously a follow-up of obviously turn 9. Very short. Must say, I do like his helmet. That is Sergio Perez's helmet though. Copyright is obviously now. Morgan then up the back straight, then here uses the DRS, and obviously with that DRS wide open, picks his braking zone into the hairpin, goes a little bit deep. Overall, that's certainly not going to help him out, but nonetheless, will commit to finishing this lap off. He will, doesn't choose to come into the pits, and does a 33.5. So yeah, that then sees him in a alright position, I suppose. Now Dan was one of the quickest drivers in Q1 in that first segment of qualifying, where he's trying to, well, maybe his teammates trying to get a bit of a tow. Not sure that was ideal, but it was okay. It weren't the best tow I've ever seen, but weren't the worst, I don't think. Hits the brakes anyway. Gets the car slowed down quite nicely. Did miss the apex ever so slightly, but nonetheless got the car rotated. Takes then the final corner pretty nicely, and it's a 31.5 from Dan, and yeah, going once again very quick in this second part of qualifying. That should see him, Dan, safely through into Q3 at least. So who's next then? So Stuart's on that out lap. Morgan is not on lap, so I think it's actually Top Car Flogger ahead of then Iron Kid. He's the next driver. So this is now the final 6 minutes of Q2. So certainly drivers will need to get a move on sooner rather than later in Q2. So out of then the back corner. Not really sure what back corner. Just turned 13. Trouble with this circuit, a bit like many circuits, doesn't have really cool corner names of what I'm aware. Not really sure what really these corners are. Just know them as turn 1, 2, 3, 4. Unlike some circuits, of course, like Silverstone, Monza, of course, and then obviously you got not just Monza, but you got other places, Monaco, just loads of them places. Them other types of circuits, Formula One needs to preserve. Same with Suzuka as well. Suzuka, another track where it just has cool corner names. Any track with cool corner names, Formula One does need to preserve. Like, I'm not saying China doesn't need to be preserved, but it doesn't have many cool corner names that I can think of, unless this is turn 1's otherwise known as Shanghai, and turn 2's known as I don't know what another place in China. I only know Shanghai, to be fair. I was going to say Hong Kong, but Hong Kong, is that China? I don't actually know. I thought Hong Kong was a different, independent state, but yeah, don't want to spark a World War III debate. Anyway, Stewart goes P2 then, and that's more like it from himself, because, of course, while still maybe not, quite at the level I would expect for him, but it's better and should see him probably survive this segment of qualifying, which, of course, getting into the top 10 for him is a must. He must get into the top 10 today. Same with, obviously, Appledorn 2. Obviously, I don't fear for Albegduri, because I think Albegduri, it should be fine. And Albegduri may have actually made it through qualifying just on that one set of tyres. So I'm not really sure whether 32.4 will be safe enough to, obviously, survive this second segment. I think, times we're looking at probably a 32.7, I think, will be the cut-off here. So anyone from top 6, again, nil down, I think should be roughly in danger. And anyone from nil upwards, maybe Top Car Vlogger could be a bit in hot water there too. So I think anyone definitely from Iron Kid down is fine. I just think, where the issue will lay is with Top Car Vlogger. Can he make it through, or will he make it through? Is he going to be in a spot of bother? Would Top Car Vlogger be wise in coming out again? Because I just think, Appledorn can probably improve by at least half a second. Certainly, I think Breezy can, and same with Charlie Harris. Kev King also probably has that time within him, and I'm not sure what about Ralphie and Shade, if they can improve by that much, by almost a second, or, just over, under 8 tenths of under a second. Getting my words mixed up. So if Morgan can improve, also got Mufasa and Tom, who aren't slouches either. Don't discount them. Anyway, Breezy is about to start a lap, so let's see what Breezy can do then. Turn 1. Hits then turn 1 pretty nicely, takes a nice tight line through there, and hits the apex of 1 very, very nicely. Through 2, again, a little bit wide on the exit of 2, but it's fine. Keeps the car nicely poised and gets the car out of the turn very, very nicely. Then down into turn 4, hits the brakes. Not sure what his sector 1 was, didn't actually tell me. So we just have to assume it was good. It looked okay from my point of view. Turns then, obviously, then 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Handling them fairly well. A little bit of certainly a slide on the exit of 10. A big slide there then on the exit of 10 actually. And that's certainly going to throw his lap time a little bit off and a bit skew with then there. So anyway, out of 13, can he recover this? He's certainly still a 10th up overall, which certainly is still a decent-ish improvement, but is it going to be the improvement he's going to need to be safe in this second part of qualifying, or is this going to be the end of the road for him? Through the final or second final corner, through the penultimate corner, through the hairpin, takes a nice tight hairpin and gets that one absolutely spot on. Gets a final corner by the looks of it spot on too, so this still might be just doable. It's a 32.79. Same lap time as Neil, but Neil's gone even quicker, so that sees Neil jump up into P2. Charlie Harris is improving. Shade is just behind Briggsy. So, what is Charlie Harris capable of? Let's have a look. Morgan is on out lap now, which probably is a bit late for that. I know he's actually started a lap. I thought he might have been a bit late there. But nonetheless, he is actually started a lap. But anyway, Charlie's about to finish one. Goes 9/10 quicker. What about Mufasa now? About to finish his lap off and goes up into P7. So right now on the brink of being knocked out is certainly then Shade and Briggsy, and also Top Car Vlogger could be looking at being knocked out here in Q2. So next up is Kev King, who is on a lap. And he is right now in the hairpin. So, can he get himself into the top 10? Knockout Shade this would. So, right now I'm not going to confirm who's in or out, but Shade is out. So that's the end of the road for Shade. We won't be seeing him in Q2, unfortunately. So, Ralphie's next. Then it's going to be Appledorm. So, in fact, we'll say with Appledorm, we'll see if he's going to make it into Q2. Kind of got these four cars all running in succession. So, Ralphie's going to cross the line any second now. And can he get himself out of that bottom 5? He can, and up into P2. Appledorm only just out of the bottom 5, so he might be in a little bit of trouble. But in the end, he's just managed to survive it. And that sees then him into Q2, and same with Tom, also making it through at the expense of Mufasa. So out in Q then 2 here, we have Mufasa, Top Car Vlogger, Briggsy, Morgan and FCS and Shade all getting eliminated in the second part of qualifying. But I tell you what, if I was Arbeck-Dury, I would be pretty satisfied so far with how my qualifying's going, compared to the title rivals I'm up against. So far, Stewart and Appledorm seem to be a little bit on the back foot here. Don't really look like they are, in the land, that I thought they would be. But we'll have to see what they can do in the final part of qualifying. Of course, there is 10 more minutes of qualifying to come, and this will be for the top 10 shootout, of course, where each car will have 2 sets of tyres, so long they've got 2 sets of tyres that they've saved, and effectively it'll be, well, the driver that can put in the quickest lap time takes pole. Right now I'd say your favourite spot for pole. To be fair, based off so far what I've seen, I'm going to say Dan and Arbeck-Dury. Those are the two, I think, looking at the moment the best in terms of everything. But that's based off what I've seen. Anyway, Q2 eliminated then. I'll go through that then once again. So we got Mufasa, Top Car Vlogger, Briggsy, and JR Morgan and FC Ancient Shade all out then in the second part of qualifying. And only now one more part of qualifying to come. And once we complete that, we can get on with this championship finale race where Stewart, Appledorm and Arbeck-Dury all going up against each other in what is one of the tightest championship fights certainly there has been this league for. So I have to see how they do then. But Dan right now looking also excellent, looking poised maybe to take a win for pride and honour in this final race then here in China.
cars line up on the grid. This was the infamous 2005 US Grand Prix, which saw 14 cars pulled out of the race due to tyre safety concerns. The Nürburgring is the only F1 track to have hosted 3 different races: the German Grand Prix, European Grand Prix and Luxembourg Grand Prix. The inaugural World Drivers' Championship was held in 1950 during the 4th season of F1.
So, we are now into the final part of this qualifying. Charlie Harris then and Arbegburi are the first two out onto the track. Appledorm not making it easy for himself. No, I agree, but nor is Stewart either, to be fair. But, of course, we'll have to see what happens. Of course, it's only Q1, Q2. Anything is still on the table for Q3. And I have to wait and see what happens here in Q3, because ultimately, you just never know. So, generating the heat in his tyres. Arbegburi is. See Stewart also doing the same. Not gonna lie, if they were on a public motorway, they'd have the cops after them, as you'd think they'd be drunk doing all that weaving. Obviously, that's only a joke. Anyway, through the final corner then for Arbegburi to start then Q3 off, and this is going to be then the first then of the 2 laps that he'll probably do here in Q3 to try and get that pole position away from, of course, then here tonight. And I'm not sure if there's an extra point actually on the line tonight for qualifying, or extra 2 points. If there is, I'm sure could affect things if Arbegburi or Stewart or Appledorm gets pole then, and through then turns 7 and 8 into 9. So far looking like he's just focused on hitting all them apexes nicely, and is doing just that. Not really taking any risks at the moment, it doesn't look like. Through then turns 10 and 11, 10 and 11, 11 and 12, up the hill through 13. Again, hitting the apexes very, very nicely. Looks like a very smooth ride from Arbegburi. Looks very much disciplined as well. Doesn't really look like he's getting the car out of shape or using too much curb and abusing them curbs. Just right now, looks like he's getting that banker in, I'd have to say. And Charlie Harris also behind, keeping up fairly decently. Looks like a fairly even distance, and it's 31.9 then to kick things off. And it's a 33.1 for Charlie Harris, so a bit more further off the pace. So, yeah, that's a very decent lap. As I said, did feel it's a banker though, so I do think we've still got more time from Arbegburi to come. So let's see what Neil can do. He's going to be the next car to finish his first run off. And crossing the line now. Can he join them in the fight for pole? Yes, he can. There we go. So 31.6 from Neil. That's a very good lap from Neil. Talk about Dandan being quick. Well, Neil is also here then showing up to the party. Where has that pace come from all of a sudden? Very, very nice from him. So let's see what the other 2 or 3 of our championship protagonists can do. Actually, we'll see what Ralphie can do. See if he's on a decent lap. He is actually on a decent lap, and I think he's going to have a good go at this one. 31.4 for the middle sector. Crosses the line now. Goes on to pole. So provisional pole for Ralphie then. That is. So what about Stewart? 31.7. A little bit behind where Ralphie was. 31.4, we know from Ralphie got provisional pole, so 31.4, 51.4 got provisional pole, and 51.7 is, well, might be a little bit down, so probably similar to where Arbegduri time would be. 31.9 is so far looking like. Can he find maybe just an extra tenth or two in the final sector? Crosses the line now, and it's a 32.3. So yeah, that's certainly a little bit behind Arbegduri. So next up is Appledom, as Dandan and Ironkid both are in the pits for the time being right now. So Ralphie is your provisional pole sitter here in Q3, and he right now is the one on pole. Appledom, similar to where Stewart was, so this probably similar territory then, I'm going to assume. Certainly looks like a bit of a slow exit, certainly from my audio, and looking at it, looked very delayed and sluggish. Looked like it was almost coughing into action there, that Red Bull. Not obviously the normal Red Bull you'd see. Usually, yeah, not sure why it sounded like that, but yeah, it just seems a bit delayed on the power. Not sure if you're using the wrong gear through that maybe for Appledom, not really too sure, but we'll see what it comes across the line as, if that translates into anything. Goes a little bit quicker than actually Stewart, but only very marginally. So, yeah, both of them very similar in pace and very similar on the track as well. Now, is this Stewart going for a second run here? I'm not entirely sure it is, I don't think so. So, see what Dandan's got. So Dandan was actually on pole for the first part, provisional pole, and qualified first in the first two parts of qualifying. But let's see what he can do in this final part. So through the final corner. And is he going to go on to provisional pole? The answer's no. Dandan misses out on provisional pole by just under 15 thousandths of a second. Then there. I think it is literally 15 thousandths. So Neil then. So your top three right now in qualifying is Ralphie, Dandan and Neil. Right now your championship protagonists are 4th, 5th and 6th at the moment. So that's where them drivers are at. So, yeah. Close between the top three. And close between the top three in the championship. That is how things are stacking up right now. I'll tell you what though, if this was the starting grid, I wouldn't be too disappointed overall. Because, quite frankly, it's pretty, well, evenly between certainly the front two championship contenders, and also for Arbegduri, looks like he's got a bit more pace, but also looks like there's some others also out there with pace who could maybe evenly challenge him too. So we'll have to see what they can do on their final runs. Of course, Dandan's done his final run and he's paying the favour back to his teammate for the toe, giving Ironkid that big fat toe, punching a hole in the air for his teammate, and hits the brakes then. Ironkid does, gets the braking zone very nicely, spot on there with the apex, gets out of the corner, and now goes through the final corner, hits the apex there too, maybe took a bit too much curb there on the inside, not gonna lie, but nonetheless crosses the line and finishes then in P7. So that I think will be both McLarens done at least in this qualifying. We'll have to see what then others can do. Still got a number of cars in the pits. So for most of the cars, for the top 3 or 4, at least 3 of the top 4 are actually out there about to do a lap. Arbegduri is actually on his second lap, and yep, this certainly looks a little bit more aggressive just initially looking at it, and you can tell he's already 2 tenths up on his personal best, so certainly looks like he's pushing a lot more and using a little bit more of the track width, using more of the curbs just to get a better lap time in than here at this Shanghai circuit. Up then towards the final braking zone, picks a braking spot pretty neatly, gets the apex too, so no issues or worries there. So through the final corner, what can he do? Takes the final corner pretty sweet as well, And is this going to move himself onto provisional pole? The answer is no. He actually lost time then. Oh no, he did gain time, sorry. On my screen it was saying he lost time, but yeah, I thought he probably gained time, but still not provisional pole. P3 is what he can do. Still a good effort. And then here comes Neil. So 10th up for himself through the first sector. So originally he was saying he did the same time for Al-Baghduri as he did before, but clearly not. Did a 31.6. Beats obviously Neil by a few thousandths. So I don't know if Neil can get ahead. Right now, Neil was a 10th up for the first sector, 10th down for the middle sector, so about even. It all comes down to this final sector for Neil. If he can do anything, have to wait and see. Of course, 31s are pretty good lap times anyway. So, heavy braking zone. Takes that again nice and neat. Now through the final corner. Takes final corner pretty sweet as well. Is this going to see an improvement? Misses out on the improvement by 31 thousandths. So for now, Al-Baghduri has taken P3. Now what can Ralphie do? He's already about a 10th up in the first sector and is now a 10th up in the middle. So through then the second or third sector of the lap, up the hill then. And right now he is your provisional pole sitter. Looking to extend his pole advantage, if he can do so, over Dan. Of course, Al-Baghduri won't be a threat. Neil won't no longer be a threat. Them two have done their final laps, and therefore they are out. Well, not out, but they are, complete. They will not be able to go again. And Ralphie's actually invalidated, so how critical could that turn out to be? So right now, he's still on pole, but he's, of course, has not improved his provisional pole lap time. And Stewart is a 10th up then as well. So he's improving, actually, Stewart out there by a nice amount. Can he maybe get into the 31? Right now, I think he's a bit off that still, but we'll have to wait and see what he can do. Right now, would start this race, though, at the moment. P7, Appledorn, P6. So not ideal for him. A bit of a wobble as well, coming out the final, or the second final corner. Then through the final corner he goes, takes the car pretty nicely through that final corner. Does get into the 31s and moves himself up into 8th, but did certainly probably lose a little bit of time. So only Appledorn left to then go. Appledorn 3/10ths up. Is this going to be a pole position for Appledorn? He's certainly got a good amount of speed in the car. Coming around the final corner now. How much is he going to improve by, and where is he going to go in terms of the race? He's going to start this race P5, so it's P5, P6 for your championship, for your top two in the championship. P3 for Al-Baghduri, but it is Ralphie then managing to remain on pole position for today's race around the circuit of Shanghai, and that is a very decent then qualifying from him to take the final pole of what will be this season by 15 thousandths of a second. Then Al-Baghduri 66 thousandths further back, followed by Neil 82,000 back. Then Appledorn about a 10th and a half back, followed by Stewart about 3/10ths off the pace today. It could have been maybe a bit closer to Appledorn. Who knows if he didn't have that bit of a wobble out that hairpin, but I don't know whether it would have been enough to be ahead. Charlie Harris in 7th, then it's Einkid 8th, then Tom in 9th, and Kev King in 10th. So that is your top 10. Unfortunately, can't go through the rest of the field because it don't allow me, but unless we got this, nope. So anyway, we did go through the rest of the order, but yeah, there you go. That is qualifying over, and now on to the main event for the race. So it's gonna be 5 red lights, and it is lights out and away we go for the final time this season. So it's a good start by Stewart and by Appledorn, both of them getting away well. And actually, it's going to be Arbeg Duri who's lost out a lot of positions, but something's actually happened to Stewart as well. I think he's tumbled down a little bit of the order. Arbeg Duri and Stewart come a little bit together. That's going to certainly not be a great way to start their championship, well, not to start their championship off, but to start this championship finale off. But it's a very good start for Appledorn, who's already up to 4th then here at China, and that is an excellent beginning to his then race here in this championship to try and take away that championship off Stewart. So what can obviously then Appledorn and everyone else do? But we've got a lap 1 safety car after Top Car Flogger has become our first victim and retirement and DNF of today then here. So yeah, but a decent start then by Appledorn in the championship. Okay for Stewart, still 7th, and Arbeg Duri though losing out a lot of positions on this opening lap like he did in Imola. But it's not over until it's over. 28 laps to go, of course. Well, make it now, probably after this safety car, probably be about 26, 27, 25. So, yeah, 25 laps to limit the damage and to maybe take the championship. But, of course, right now, Appledorn, I believe, would be your champion if the result stood like this. If basically man's not Bob or whoever Mafasa said, lads, let's call it a day, which I'm sure he's not going to if they did say that, you know, Appledorn would be your champion. So this is how things would go. So we've seen Tom now into the pits. Brian is now going to be ahead of him, and also we're seeing anyone else into the pits, or is it just going to be Tom? Just Tom then. So here we go then. Dan right now is your race leader. Good start from him. Gets obviously Ralphie off the line. Neil managing to hold on to 3rd. Of course, did win Hungary only a few rounds ago. And that was certainly a race that certainly had a lot of could, woulds, and should haves. Same with also Imola. Could, would, and should. Or should, could, and would. Whatever way you want to say it. I don't think safety car's in this lap, is it? Even though, have the lights gone off for safety car? Don't think it's kind of in this lap. The next lap. Pretty sure. So safety car should be in the end of this lap. Once it does come in, of course, we will go back to the racing green, and once we're back to the racing green, we will, of course, then, well, race once again. Of course, that's obvious to say, but this should be the lap where it does come back in. Let's see what tyres everyone is on. There we go. So, Dandan's actually gone hards. Ralphie and others gone mediums. So, few on the hards. But most have gone mediums. Like, well, what is that, about 80% of the field? Or 90% of the field mediums, about 10% hards. So here we go then, and right, Dandan is now backing them off, of course. He's now the de facto safety car, of course, now in this race, and effectively it's his duty to restart this race. Of course, can't go too heavy, can't go too gentle, but keeps that a steady pace. Clearly up the back straight here at China, and what can he do in order to, well, win this race for himself? But of course, for Appledorn, for Stewart, them two need to try and have the best races they can and try and, well, take as many points. So Dandan has gone now out of the hairpin and has led them away. By the looks of it, Ralphie has gone also with him and is managed to stick with him. Dandan trying to break the toe, swerves to the right, then remains in to the left and more central for the first corner. Is then Ralphie going to have a go into turn one? The answer, did have a look, but in the end backs out and couldn't get the job done there. So had to obviously back out of that one in terms of to not obviously come together with his rival. So what about Einkid and Stewart? What can they do? Also, Appledorn is also there. We'll go back to the lead, then fight, because I think that's, well, whilst you want to know what's going on in Championship, I'll keep you updated, but we want to see what's going on also at the front of the grid too. And right now, Dandan has got half a second lead as we'll go up the main straight for the first time under racing speed in this race. Didn't get to do it on lap 1, but we are going to now get to do it on lap 4. So, right now, Dandan does have a decent actual lead over Ralphie to remain probably ahead of him as we'll get to the heavy braking zone into the hairpin. But as we get to the hairpin, is he going to be far enough ahead? The answer is obviously yes, and takes that turn fairly nicely and comprehensively too. Charlie Harris has actually overtaken one of your championship leaders, and also Stewart's made a pass. So Stewart's up to 6th, Appledorn down to 5th. Now that would mean Stewart is now in contention or in position to win the championship then here today. So he would be your champion if things remained now the way things are. Arbeg Duri is also making a pass, so all the 3 championship leaders changing and swapping around their positions once again. And it's Arbeg Duri making the move on then Mafasa for P8. And gets the move done, of course. For Arbeg Duri does need to be ahead of his championship contenders if he's to win today's championship here in Tier 1. Of course, if he doesn't be ahead of them, then he has no hope of the championship win today. Then it's pretty simple as that. Same with Appledorn, needs to be ahead of Stewart if he wants to have any hope of winning today's championship then. So, up then the hill. Dandan's actually broken out a second, and I think Neil's going to be the one then powering down this back straight, potentially trying to get past then Ralphie for P2 here in this race, using up a bit of ERS as well. Is he going to go for it on the brakes? The answer is no. Had a little look though, certainly feeling his car in the mirrors of that Williams and making his Mercedes look big and maybe off-putting to then the Mercedes driver then here. Mafasa's going to go side by side with one of the championship protagonists. Mafasa's actually taken P8 off Arbegburi. That's a fantastic move at the final corner. I wonder whether there was a mistake from Arbegburi to allow Mafasa back into that fight. I'm not entirely sure how Mafasa got himself back into it, but he did. And a little bit of contact between, it was, I believe, Elliott and Mafasa. I think that was just minor contact, but yeah, a little bit of contact there. Nonetheless, Briggsy goes off the track, and this is going to allow Mafasa potential opportunity into turn 4. Is it? The answer is no. In the end, it's Briggsy ahead of Mafasa then there. And now it's Elliott trying to make a move on Morgan, but Morgan is far enough ahead to defend that one off. So good racing down at the back of the grid towards here. And it is Shade then trying to have a look now at the Aston Martin of Elliott, and it's Elliott looking at the back of now Morgan as well. So Morgan and Elliott fighting it out on the track here. So here comes Elliott. Has he got maybe the potential go down the inside at turn number 10 into 11? Seems like he's not gone for the move there, which is probably a smart thing to do, as I think we're going to see Iron Kid shortly be passed by then also Arbegburi. Here goes then Arbegburi with the DRS. Is he going to be able to get him? He's going to have to make the move stick on the brakes. We've got yellow flag in the final corner. We've got them 3x3 going behind Morgan on the inside. Mafasa on the outside. Briggsy was also on the outside. Mafasa was kind of in the middle. A little bit of contact between Morgan and Mafasa then there through the final corner. All these 4-5 fighting hard, and again 3x3 down the other straight, or sorry, not 3x3, but Briggsy trying to make a move on then Mafasa. A little bit of a love tap from Briggsy then there in the first corner, but Mafasa in the end is now down to 11th. Must be a bit frustrating for the Ferrari driver and for Mafasa then here, who has of course started this race a little bit higher up, but is now down to P11 then. Had a good start, of course. FCS and Shade also down to 14th. Right now, in terms of constructors, I'm actually not sure which way that's going. Of course, right now, I think constructors might just be going the way of Alfa Romeo. I'm just going to have a quick look. So Mercedes right now are actually in a very good position, but then also Tom isn't in a great position. I feel like it could be a very, very close one in the constructors too. Right now, wouldn't want to say how that is actually going there. But Charlie Harris making a move on Ralphie. That's for P3. And that is Charlie Harris up into 3rd in this race. He's having actually a really good race, Charlie is. And he's up into 3rd. Lap 8 then of the race. And 20 laps to go. Then around the circuit of Shanghai. So Neil currently leads, but is on the set of the hards. Therefore his tyres will be, of course, lasting a little bit longer. And he'll go on the mediums, I suspect, for the second half of this race. With, of course, then the others all going on to hards. So Tom makes up a move on Brian, and that's 15th then for the other Mercedes driver, which could be a very crucial move for him because and for his team, because right now Neil's 2nd right now on the road, and of course Charlie is, not Charlie, Tom is up into 14th. Breezy's actually had a moment, so that's now Tom up another position. So Mercedes might just be swinging this one around, you know. So yeah, that's certainly going to be close. So Arbegburi's almost gained on the 2 other championship protagonists in this. But here goes Stewart then for a move ahead to get himself ahead of Appledorn. He is going to get ahead of Appledorn on the brakes into the hairpin. And that now is Stewart up into 5th. ahead of his other championship rival, and that is, of course, Stewart inside the top 5, which not just would secure him the championship win, but would ultimately extend his championship lead in the end. So, lap 9 of then, of 28, Elliott's and Robbo making up a move. Sorry, Robbo has just lost the car. Might have had a bit of contact, not entirely sure. Also picked up a penalty there too. So that is certainly now Robbo with a bit of a penalty to his name. Of course, I should say, while Stewart is 4th, 5th on the road, I'm not sure whether Turn 1 will get investigated between Appledorn and... sorry, not Appledorn. Stewart and Albegduri, because there was contact there at Turn 1. And if that's the case, well, Stewart might need to put out a bit of a time deficit to the car in 8th, which right now would be Iron Kid. So Iron Kid, you know, if Stewart gets a penalty, could become a very key factor in how this race and how this championship ends today. In a way, I don't know whether Iron Kid would want that, being the deciding factor in the bottle, or in the genie, who takes the championship, but could be. Just saying could. I'm saying will be. Have to see what goes on though. Right now though, 3 championship leaders all together on the same piece of road. And all together as well on the same tyre compound too. For good measure as well. So right now, Charlie Harris trying to chase down your race leader, but also trying to stay ahead of Neil. Right now Neil is down into 3rd. And that's obviously going to see Mercedes lose a few points. 3 there. Which, again, you know, it's sort of a very even one at the moment between Alfa Romeo and Mercedes, I would say. There's a car between Neil and between, obviously, Stewart in that battle for first in the Constructors. And there's a car between, obviously, Tom and, obviously, FCS and Shade in the battle there. But Neil trying to go for it again down the inside. Right now he's also flashing on his rear wing, both of them out of the ERS. And Stewart is losing a few positions here to some of his championship rivals. So there goes Stewart, and Stewart is now back down to 6th behind Appledorn once more then here in this race. And I suppose the key thing for Stewart and for Appledorn, just in my opinion, is not to take each other out, because that could be devastating to both. They've got to, whatever happens, remain cool. I'm sure they know that anyway. I would like to imagine they know that. But yeah, not to take each other out, and if they remain cool, anything can happen for them too. And they're poised and in best position right now to win this championship, either one of them. If Arbegduri does, like, you know, go through, do you just let him through? That's the question, I suppose. Briggsy at the back there, trying to make it back to the grid, back to the pit lane, I suppose. Maybe going for a new set of tyres, even though he just actually, I think, bolted on a new set of tyres. So yeah, not sure if this is going to be a retirement from Briggsy here. Might be. So Appledorn weaving and dancing down the straight, but of course Stewart with the DRS and gets back past his championship rival to take back 5th then here. Charlie Harris also doing a good job maintaining P2 at the moment. and Stewart's actually lost the position to Appledorn. And that sees then Appledorn back through. Stewart still got the DRS though. Stewart trying to go around the outside then here. He's going to have to go around the long way if he's going to make this move stick. He's certainly going to try and attempt it on the outside. A little bit of contact between then once again Arbeck-Dury and Stewart. Stewart in the end having to back out and Arbeck-Dury forcing himself through then that one. But here goes Stewart. Is he going to try and launch one down the inside at turn 4? The answer's no. In the end, he backs out, and that's probably a wise thing, just to remain calm and cool and collected there in that moment from, obviously, Arbeck-Dury trying to get that move done, and has obviously now put himself up into 6th behind his other championship rival, obviously, of then Appledorn, right now, who is currently in 5th then here. So right now, Arbeck-Dury, I think, would... well, be taken away the championship almost from Appledorn potentially here. I'm going to have a quick look at the points again just to try and keep updated with this one. Because obviously, as I say, need to kind of know where our rivals are generally at. So... right now, Appledorn would... I don't know whether he would be doing enough to win the championship. I'm not sure if actually, if Appledorn wins, he gets the championship anyway due to countback because of wins or whatever. Could possibly do. And that's another thing, actually, haven't actually talked about. If Arbeck-Dury finishes level on points with either one, and obviously, you know, or ends up on the same points as both, Arbeck-Dury would be your champion due to the countback rule of course, most wins during the course of the season. So that's another dilemma, which very unlikely, but certainly could play out here today. That is the unlikely scenario, though. The most likely scenario is one of them wins it on the actual track. And in the end, it could come down to, obviously, something very crucial. But this is actually a crucial moment because Charlie Harris has spun. And Charlie Harris, has he got any sort of wing damage? Well, he's certainly kept the car going. Hasn't DNF'd, but certainly lost his P3, which certainly probably be P2 by the time we exit the pit stops. So he's probably down to, I don't know, 4th, maybe 5th. And has he got wing damage? I think he has, actually. And he has indeed. So he's going to have to come in for a wing change and also into the pits. We've got also 2 of the championship leaders of Stewart and Appledorn then on lap 14. It's all starting to kick off a little bit here in the championship, and not just in the championship, but this race in general. So they're going on to a set of hards and trying to obviously now undercut, obviously, Arbeck-Dury for what will be then that position again. Dandan obviously remaining out. No, well, he's not going to blink, probably not for a long time. And, right, what is Arbeck-Dury doing right now? Arbeck-Dury still got competitive pace, actually, on those mediums. Bear in mind, he would have had a lot of traffic to get it through, and he's only 5.7 seconds off your race leader here. And right now, those mediums probably aren't in the best of shape overall. You would like to, or I would like to say, the hard tire probably is doing a little bit better, so... terms of the lifespan of it, at least. But yeah, actually, Arbeck-Dury is really showing good pace. So, what does Arbeck-Dury do? Does he react to them, or does he focus actually on the fact if he's got the same pace or as good a pace as Dandan, maybe try and stay out and stick with Dandan for a bit? That's honestly going to be down to him to make. In the end, has dropped a little bit further back now on this part of the lap, but he's still within 5.7 seconds. It's under 6 seconds, which, you know, compared to many laps ago, it would have been over 6 seconds. Anyway, Tom is now up to 6th. Of course, is got to make his pit stop so far. Of course, right now, drivers who've got to make their pit stops is Lucky Egg, Kev King, Abeg Duri, you know, Robbo, Morgan, and FCS and Shade. Tom has come into the pits now. So he's decided those tyres have quite frankly had enough after 13 laps on them. But yeah, Abeg Duri actually is staying out. So maybe he's taking my commentary advice, maybe listening into the stream at the moment. And, you know, he's realising he's got good pace, so why not just take them tyres as far as they can go and try and keep up with, obviously, Dandan, who's on the hard strategy. And, you know, if you can do that, the overcut, that can also equally be as beneficial. And, you know, the thing about Abeg Duri, he's got to go after the race win today, really, I believe, or at least a podium, you know, to get any hope of winning the championship. If he's not on the podium and, you know, or not in, well, in first or second, I think the championship situation for Abeg Duri is looking bleak. If he's, you know, in first or second, I think he's got a greater chance, and he will have a greater chance. But, you know, anywhere outside the top three, I think it's going to be a little bit tougher and a bit of a more of a strenuous call for, obviously, Abeg Duri to make. But here goes Nil up the inside, take away then obviously what will be that then position off FCS and Shade. And that's a position gained for the Mercedes driver to take then that position away. Right now, Stewart is still following then Appledorn. And right now, Dandan's actually come in for his stop. So where's he going to rejoin? He's going to rejoin then in 7th. And is about 1.5 seconds behind your race leader. So, obviously, Abeg Duri will lose time to, obviously, Appledorn and Stewart, but depending what tyre he goes, he could even get to the medium sit, to the soft sit. I mean, and that could be worth it. I mean, it'd be a bit of a different strategy compared to what other drivers are doing. You know what, if I was Abeg Duri, you got nothing to lose. You know, really, you've got everything to gain here. And I think, you know, this might be now the strategy you have to commit to. Especially now that Dandan's actually stopped. But how much time does he then lose to Appledorn? Of course, going for the hards now, only having about 2 laps fresher tyres isn't going to be much of an advantage. Mafasa's spun again, down in 17th, and actually Abeg Duri's coming in, so he's only going to have about 3 laps fresher hards as he comes into the pits now. And of course, I imagine this is going for hards. I don't think he's going to go onto a set of softs to see. Let's see what he does do. Is that a set of softs or is it hards? It's hards. So it is going to be hard tyre for, obviously, Abeg Duri to the end of the race. And he is going to obviously come out behind his 2 championship rivals with a bit of a gap and with a bit of traffic maybe ahead of him, or on the back of him at least. As we see Charlie and Iron Kid side by side through then that turn, both of them having a bit of a scrap right now for what would be P7 in this race. But looks like as we get to the next turn, it is going to be then Charlie Harris ahead of Iron Kid, and Iron Kid down to 8th in this race. So right now, Appledorn still then ahead of Stewart. Stewart still behind Appledorn. Abeg Duri is now come out in 6th, 11 seconds off the lead. Has lost a lot of time, but does have fresher tyres, bear in mind, than at least the 2 championship protagonists ahead of him. And could be a very important factor, as I say, in this race. Right now, of course, Appledorn would take at least 18 points. Stewart takes 16 points right now. Dandan's, though, going for the race win here. And he's taking right now 23 points. 26 points, sorry. Of course, could have been also a championship rival this season. Sadly, didn't really, well, ended prematurely for him, but he's shown why, at least, he could have been one of the better, well, been in that fight this season, I suppose. And was in the fight for a large chunk of it. Fortunately, just a few races didn't go his way, and that was his championship, unfortunately, over. But he's certainly racing for a lot of pride out here today, and he's doing himself very proud, very honourably. Neil, right now, also doing himself proud and honourably. Doing an amazing job in this race so far, to be in P1 and to be your race leader at the moment. Of course, probably not going to be race leader for long, considering at the rate which Dan is catching, but he is obviously your race leader for now, and credit where credit is due. He's certainly going to probably finish on the podium here today, I reckon. I think he's got enough in there, but we have to wait and see. However, Arbejduri is catching quite quickly as well, bear that in mind. So we'll have to see where Arbejduri in the end gets up to. If Arbejduri can get up to, I don't know, second or third, it'd be an excellent charge, but whether it'd be enough, probably not. But yeah, so coming into the final part of this season then, very, very shortly, and we'll be very, very soon in the back 8 laps of this race, and of course in the final 8 laps of this championship. So, still Neil leading right now, being chased down by Dan for what is P1. Really also as well, anyone can still win this, I would say. It's not over until it's over. And that is going to be critical to note. But, here we go then. Dan making the move on then Neil. Neil going then, unfortunately, backwards. But can he try and hang it around the outside? Certainly giving it a little bit of a go. But in the end, has to back out. And it is Dan on those fresher mediums and on the better compound of tyre, of course. And it is then Dan taking his lead back on lap 20 with 8 laps of the season remaining and 8 laps of this race remaining. So right now this has to be the closest meaningful fight, I'd say, on the track. Also, in terms of Constructors update, I do believe Mercedes would be your Constructors champions at the moment in that P2 and P9. So Alfa Romeo might just be losing here, the Constructors title at least, unfortunately. Can they hold on then to the Drivers title? Of course, I don't see what FCS and Shade can do back there to influence it, so it's all going to come down to Stewart, at least right now. Right now, second and third would probably be more than enough for Mercedes to overhaul that 4-5 point deficit they've got in the Constructors. That would probably see them jump certainly ahead of their rivals, Mercedes, up into then Mercedes, ahead of their rivals Alfa Romeo, up into first, Mercedes would. So, I have to see what happens there, but yeah, I think Mercedes are going to come home as Constructors champions today. Of course, Stewart trying to take this driver's title. Appledorn also trying to take it. And in the end, What is it going to come down to? Is it going to come down to a crash? Is it going to come down to a DNF? Is it going to come down to just, penalty someone picking up? Or is it going to come down to, actually nothing? And in the end, just great driving, which we've seen all season long by all three of them, really. Which all three of them deserve probably the title as much as each other. If you could split the title three ways, I'm sure you could. I'm sure you could. I'm sure you would. If that makes sense. You wouldn't really... I don't think... Of course, I think you can make an argument Arbegduri deserves to be champion due to the fact he's got most wins. You could make the argument Appledom deserves to be champion, or you could make the argument Stewart deserves to be champion due to his pure consistency. But, ultimately, as I said, pure consistency, Stewart almost dropped the car there. But all three of them have been phenomenal and exceptional. And Charlie Harris is out. And that has brought out a safety car with then only a handful of laps remaining in the championship. And not just in the championship, but in this race. So surely this means everyone is going to probably come in, commit to softs. Well, yeah. To be fair, I did say we'd get a safety car. So everyone's pretty much in. Arbegduri's chosen to stay out, so he's gone for track position over the influence of having the fresher tyre. So others obviously coming in for that fresher tyre, which I think is the right choice to go to. Interestingly, some have actually gone for mediums, which I think is a bit of an interesting call. So far, only Stewart, Appledom, and Ironclad all going for softs. Kev King's gonna try and stay out on his mediums too. So it's not everyone coming in here. Right now, Dandan and Arbegduri both have chosen the option to stay out, which I think is quite a bold call. And yeah, very interesting from them ultimately. But really, as I said, this now brings everything back together. Then here, and okay, I'm not sure what's gone on there, and yeah, I'm not really sure what Dandan is doing there or what is going on at the front of the grid here, because Dandan went off the track, and what I hope about that, no offence, is that hasn't given, Arbegduri any wing damage. I know he's letting a car pass, but I mean, you can't let lap cars past, if that makes sense. Like, as soon as a car is lapped, it's lapped. I mean, if you want to do that, I suppose the answer is, I think Lange has to go in the pits, no? Like, and circulate to the back of the grid, honestly. Like, I don't really know what the solution is, because don't get me wrong, yeah, if like Lange had a really heavy hit there with Arbegduri, I just hope it hasn't given Arbegduri wing damage. That's all I hope for, because obviously that wouldn't be a nice way to have your championship ended. Right now, I don't think it's given Arbegduri any damage, but that's all I hope it hasn't, because that could certainly see the end of Arbegduri's championship hopes if it has given him rear wing damage. Just wants to, well, I mean, if you don't want to influence the championship, fair enough. I mean, as a reserve, or maybe as a back marker, or lapped car, but then just, I say, go into the pits when it's appropriate, and then at least you'll be put to the back of the grid, and therefore you're not going to get in anyone's way or whatnot. You're not going to unlap yourself, unfortunately. Fortunately, the game don't allow it, really, which... Should it be coded into the game for future games? I suppose that's a question should be asked. I mean, but I think the difficulty is you would have a bit of think Codemasters might have a bit of trouble there. They had a struggle coding, obviously, red flags into the game, bear in mind, at the start of the season, or start of the year on this game, so I don't know whether they'll be able to code unlapping into the game. In terms of unlapping under safety car, might be a stretch too far, really, for Codemasters. The only thing now, if Arbeiduri does report that, obviously I'm not sure whether Dandan would get a penalty for that, or whether, you know, anyone would. Yeah. If they do get a penalty, could that see Arbeiduri win this race? And if he does win this race, as I say, Arbeiduri will be in a great position, actually. So we are seeing Lange come into the pits there, so he is going to get out of the way pretty much of all the championship leaders. That's a nice thing to see, really, ultimately, in truth, to be honest with you, because ultimately I do get why, you know, they did that, to get the lap cars out of the way back in Abu Dhabi. Always nice to see that. Probably wasn't the right thing to do in the end. Probably, I don't know what would be the right thing to do on that topic of conversation, but yeah. Still, Arbeiduri and Dandan right now are your two leaders. Then your two other championship leaders, Apeldoorn and Stewart, all then in 5th and 6th. So 2nd for Arbeiduri, it's 5th for Apeldoorn and 6th for Stewart. Both of which are on softs. I must say, Apeldoorn weaving around a lot, which, of course, I know he's getting temperature into his tyres, but it will also be wearing out them tyres. Okay, maybe not a lot. So, here we go then. So that'll be the final safety car, most likely, of the season. Almost near enough, definitely. I don't think we're going to have another safety car again. Pace-wise, that medium will be faster, is going to have to be remained to be seen. And, of course, we do know Dandan did have a bit better pace during the qualifying, but I think Dandan is actually gone already. Then has he, or has he not? No. But actually, Arbeiduri's coming along side by side, so it's only some games going on here. But nonetheless, they have gone now, and that is then the race leader restarted this race then here. And here goes then Arbeiduri already trying to make a move for the lead and trying to get into P1 by turn 1. And he's going to get into that first place at the first corner. And that is now Arbeiduri up into the race lead. So, here then Neil on the back of then also Dandan trying to get that move done. Has got also now a bit of a penalty as well to come his way, which could be crucial in the end as well. So, what about going on further back? It looks like Stewart right now is safe in terms of from attack. So that will be a nice thing to hear, I'm sure, for himself. But nonetheless, Dandan right now is the one who is under the most pressure from all that follow him behind. So Ralphie is in 4th, and he'll be the next car to right now come next, or try and get the move done on Dandan. Also Neil is going for it, and Neil's got some amazing pace. Obviously those fresher tyres working out a treat for these then group of cars then here, compared to those who stayed out, of course, did take the risk I did say they should have probably came in, but here goes Nil. Then can he go around the outside of Arbejduri? Of course, if he is going to get this move done on Arbejduri, he is going to have to go the long way around, or probably going to have to certainly fight for it. He's going to try it, then into the final corner, is he? He's certainly going to get a bit squeezed out, but Nil's into the pits. What? Oh, that must have been a drive-through. Okay, so that's an interesting one. Nil had a drive-through. Yeah, I knew Nil had a penalty, but yeah, I didn't know it was a drive-through. But yeah, that's then, well, surely then that's probably the title for, at least constructors-wise, gone to Alfa Romeo then. That is surely then the, yeah, that must be the, well, constructors over. But right now, in terms of the, well, Drivers' Championship, then, it's going to be Arbejduri coming under pressure from Ralphie and also then from Appledorn and Stewart in these final races. Obviously, Ralphie doesn't have a penalty for good measure. Obviously, Arbejduri has got the older tyres. So right now, if this race was to finish the way it is, right now I can confirm that, of course, Appledorn would not be your champion. It'd be Stewart by a point. 1 point, I believe, difference. I'm going to quickly check who's got fastest lap, because that could also influence things. It is Dandan right now with the fastest lap of the race. And 3-second penalty for FCS and Shade, but I don't know how much that's going to affect things. But Ralphie's up into the lead, so that is certainly more points taken off then. Your one of the championship protagonists here, as we've now got 2 laps of racing to go. Right now, this is looking good for Alfa Romeo in both Constructors and Drivers' Championship titles here. So, in the end, this championship may come down to who can get past Arbejduri. Can both Appledorn and Stewart get past, then the, well, Arbejduri, if they can, then, well, it will go Stewart's way, the drivers. If not, this could go Appledorn's way. It's really in the balance, this is, who is going to be the champion today. I think Arbejduri, it's safe to say he's fought valiantly, but he's not going to be your champion because he's not going to score enough points. But it could still, well, Arbejduri is still going to be a significant factor, because if Appledorn can get past and Stewart can't, then, of course, that would mean Appledorn's champion. If Stewart can also get past, then Stewart is champion. That is literally how it will be here in the championship. So here then goes then for Arbejduri. He's weaving then down the main straight, trying to put up as much defence as he can, but it's going to be no match for them fresher soft tyres. And of course, for Appledorn, that is now Appledorn into a championship winning position for right now. So with 1 lap to go, it's all going to come down then to Stewart to try and then, well, go after the win in this championship and to try and take that then position, that P3 off then his rival. But does Appledorn actually help out Arbejduri to let, you know, basically Arbejduri defend? Basically do a bit of a Carlos Sainz at, obviously, Singapore. Keep Arbejduri within a second. That certainly could be a very clever strategy from, obviously, Appledorn if he does do that, because it would be harder for, obviously, Stewart to get past with, obviously, Arbejduri, you know, outside that 1 second window, or within that 1 second window of, obviously, Appledorn. I'm not sure if Appledorn is going to take that risk, but if he does, but it looks like really Arbejduri is struggling a lot then on those 11 lap hold hard compound tyres, and I don't know whether Arbejduri's within a second. It looks like actually Arbejduri is not within a second here, so this should be surely a simple pass for then Stewart down the main straight or down the back straight. So it's all going to come down to this. Can Stewart get past Arbejduri then for the championship? If he does, this is going to have to be a late lunge then from Stewart then, he's certainly going to go for it round the outside, a little bit of contact made between then Arbejduri and Stewart. Stewart's going for it, he's got the inside line for the next corner, and that is going to be the championship for Stewart, I believe, as he'll cross the line to take P3. Apeldoorn, I believe, has missed out on the championship because he only scored 26 points, Stewart on 23 points, which means there was a 4-point deficit going into this race. It's going to be a point between them coming out of it in the end. So I believe Stewart would be your champion here in Tier 1. And that is then Stewart crowned champion for this season. Arbejduri did try to defend to keep Stewart behind, but in the end didn't have enough in the tank. And ultimately, I also believe Alfa Romeo have done enough to be crowned Constructors Champions. So it will be the double for both Stewart and for Alfa Romeo here in Tier 1. That is literally how I believe things have gone today, because of course McLaren weren't in the fight, Mercedes was. Aston Martin and Red Bull had a bit of an outside chance, but ultimately it was Alfa Romeo who had the upper hand in that one too. So I do believe, there we go, that is then this season over and concluded. And I do believe it is Stewart world champion for this entire season, which is a massive congrats to Stewart on, this championship. He's been probably the most consistent driver of them all, to be fair, to even get in the fight. Always finishing the races in the end most of the time. But yeah, go through then the race results. So Ralphie wins the final race of the season from Apeldoorn with 1.3 seconds. Then it's Stewart P3 as your world champion. Arbejduri is in 4th. Dandan 5th. Iron Kid in 6th. And Dandan took the fastest lap, by the way. Tom 7th, and then Elliot in 8th. Robbo 9th. Lucky Egg in 10th, rounding out the top 10. Outside the top 10, we have Mufasa finally finishing a race, then Morgan in 12th, and then Kev King in 13th. Brian comes home in 14th, Neil 15th. Of course, did lose out, I believe, therefore, also on the Constructors. FCS and Shade helped his team win the Constructors too, and Lange a lap down, unfortunately, out of the race with a DNF. We have Charlie, Breezy, and Top Car Vlogger, of course, out of the race in the end. So that has been Tier 1 ERL China Championship finale. It has gone the way of Stewart, which can only give him massive congratulations. But a massive congratulations, really, to the top 3 championship protagonists for providing us with such an entertaining season. And all 3 of them, as I say, if you could, or if you would, equally all deserve the championship for this season. So, watching, see you all next season for another season, and take cool care. See you all soon.